Do you ever feel like you're running on empty, even when everything looks successful on the outside? Well, burnout doesn't just knock politely. It barges in, it'll drain your joy, and it'll leave you questioning everything. So, how do you go from constant fatigue and overwhelm to flourishing in your business and life? In today's episode, I'm talking with Dr. Victoria Mensch, who's a powerhouse with both a PhD in psychology and an MBA from UC Berkeley, about what it truly takes to build burnout-proof leadership. We take a look at why traditional success often comes at the cost of personal well-being, how to tell if you're slipping into burnout, even when you're still functioning, and some practical tools for taking back control. And Victoria shares how joy, self-awareness, and a willingness to relinquish unnecessary control can lead to a more fulfilling, resilient way of working and living. And Victoria's journey from burning out as a psychologist to thriving in Silicon Valley to founding her own consulting practice gives her a unique insight into the emotional and mental load that high achievers carry. So whether you're still in corporate, building your own business, or juggling both, her approach to self-leadership and energy management will leave you thinking, this is what I've been needing to hear. Welcome to the Online Business Launchpad podcast. I'm Trudy Rankin, and I bring you stories, tips, and practical advice from online entrepreneurs and experts who have overcome problems and challenges to get to success. Because if they've done it, so can you. My mission is simple. I want to help you solve the challenges you face as an online business owner so that you can have more time and money for the people you love and more choices in how you live your life. Today, I've got Victoria Mensch joining me. Now, Victoria has a PhD in psychology, and she also has an MBA, Master's of Business Administration, from UC Berkeley. And she helps high-performing people and teams master the art of burnout-proof leadership and sustainable growth. And I think that's something that every business owner should be thinking about, looking at, and trying to learn more, because burnout is not a fun thing to go through. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, Victoria, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Trudy. I'm very happy to be here.
So let's go ahead, as we usually do, and get started and just get people to know you just a little bit better. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background? What led you into the world of psychology and just that whole burnout-proof leadership side of things?
Yes, so thank you. I'm happy to do that. As everyone else, out of high school, I was searching for what I want to do in the world. And I decided that I wanted to be a psychologist. So that's actually my first profession. I went to college, I got my bachelor and master and a PhD in psychology. And then I started counseling people. And that lasted for about a year. And by the end of that year, I said, no more. And made a mistake. I followed my passion to the T. I've done everything I was supposed to do with a passion, with perseverance. And then I started actually working as a psychologist. And by the end of the year, what I know now, I experienced my first burnout. So I took it as most of us take it. And I said, for sure, it's because I made the wrong choice. The psychology is not mine. I did this and I made a mistake. So I changed my profession, I pivoted, and I went to corporate world where I experienced a few more burnouts down the road. I tried this side of this, the other side of it. I built a great career in the corporate world. For 25 years, I worked in Silicon Valley and high-tech industry and all sorts of companies, large companies, small companies, boutique consulting company. I opened my own company only to experience this burnout over and over again until I realized that the problem is not really in external circumstances. Yes, they contribute, but until I change my own attitude, until I practice, and until I learn the tools to deal with that state internally, I'm going to go through that. So that's what led me to another passion project of mine. Now we need to help other people to go through this journey and live a burnout-proof life.
It sounds lovely, because nobody really wants to go through burnout. Nobody wants to lose the joy of what they do and the feeling of satisfaction that you get, but which typically does happen. You lose that sense of joy when you go through burnout. So I'm just a little bit curious for you, what made you decide to move away from the corporate world that you were part of, and then once again have another crack at setting up your own business?
Yes, it said it was a series of burnouts. This way, I had a lot of responsibilities. And corporate career is a high stress career. And one of the red threads, and I see that in my clients now as well, is that the sense of losing control. I'm not in control of my life. I'm not in control of my career. I'm always at the mercy of something else and somebody else and other stakeholders that are ruling that. So that was a big motivating factor for me to start thinking about entrepreneurial career. And yes, entrepreneurship provides that to the experience. At the same time, now you're at the mercy of other circumstances, right? So that's why when I talk about burnout, which you think that you're in control, yes, but that control comes with a greater responsibility. Now you're like way too much in control of things that you really don't have any control over. So that's where this burnout kind of prevention comes. It's what I'm talking about, this burnout-proof strategies in the leadership. And a lot of it is really self-leadership. So for a lot of people who are in burnout, switching from corporate world to entrepreneurship could be an answer. For a lot of people, it's a surface answer and an escape of some sort. So until you actually make a right state of mind, knowing what it is that you're looking for when you're looking to start a company, I think it's better to weigh these options, whether to stay in the corporate career or to switch into entrepreneurship, or actually combine these two. That's an option as well. If you do have, again, tools and strategies and practices to deal with the stress and with the constant disruption, and have this practice of being the art of resilience, right?
So I just want to dig just a little bit more deeply. And I know that you're saying that the reason that you started your own business was because you have become burnt out with all of the different roles that you had in with the different sized organizations as you go through. But I'm thinking about it from the lens of somebody who's listening and who's maybe they're still deep in corporate and they've been to a number of jobs, and maybe they've had that realization that they're not in control. But in terms of the trigger point, that thing that made you go, I'm not in control, I'm burnt out, I'm not going to do this anymore, I want to do something else. Was that like a buildup of gradual understanding, or was it like a sudden bolt of lightning where you went, I can't take this anymore?
It was both, right? So it was at some point it was like, I cannot take this anymore. So I really don't want to stay in this career. It's not like I don't want to, I really can't, right? So if it was that, I really can't be in this company. I really can't be in this culture with this manager. So that actually contributed. At some point, I had people who I worked with were not very experienced managers. So that could contribute as well. And then for me, the transition was gradual because I found the consulting role first at a small boutique consulting company. So I was consulting with them on and off. And then that company started to grow, which allowed me to join them full time, which was semi-entrepreneurial. So it wasn't my company, but I was a partner in that company. So that helped me to make this transition a little bit more gradual. And then from there, I actually decided to open my own practice that was related to this consulting company, but in a kind of different niche and a different direction. Does that make sense, Trudy?
Yeah, makes sense. And it brings me to my next question. So if somebody's listening and they're going, this burnout thing, do I have it? Am I burnt out, or am I just feeling, who knows, maybe this is temporary, whatever. What kind of signs should people be looking for if they're actually reaching the stage where they are burnt out? And as you said, even if they want to, they can't continue.
Mm-hmm. So there's so many different definitions and so many symptoms as well. So what helps usually when I explain it this way, so what burnout is from the physiological point of view, it's a chronic stress reaction. So if you feel stressed, right? So sometimes, I feel stressed today a little bit. tomorrow a little bit. But when it is a constant buildup of that stress that doesn't get released, that's when we start talking about the burnout. And then in terms of the symptoms, so one of the red threads again is this state of fatigue. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I cannot take enough rest, right? So no matter how long I sleep, I feel tired. So that one is probably constant. There are other symptoms that are very personalized because each of us experience stress differently. So what's your reaction to stress? Some people lose appetite. Some people start craving things. Some people lose sleep. Some people sleep a lot, right? So what's your reaction to stress? In burnout, you can expect to experience more of that. And on a psychological level, I think you touched on it a little bit earlier. Yes, fatigue is one of those, but there are also other, there's like lack of motivation, negativity, complaining. So those things, they tend to come as a cluster. Right? So it's not, I'm tired and now I really don't want to do that anymore. I can't see these people. I can't see those people. I cannot be with this partner. I cannot take that job anymore. So we start assigning those to external circumstances again. But at the end, the core of it, from a physiological point of it, is a chronic stress reaction that doesn't get released.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm just curious because a lot of people, I know a lot of people who are very driven, and you get to the point where you're starting to feel these things. And because of the drivenness of the nature or the personality, they feel like they have to keep going anyway. What kind of damage does that do to you if you just keep trying to work your way through burnout? Does it work? Hey, before we jump back into today's episode, I want to quickly talk to those of you who've poured your heart and soul into writing a book or a manuscript, but you haven't quite taken that next step. Maybe you've hesitated because self-publishing seems overwhelming, or you're worried it won't look professional enough. That's exactly why Michelle and her incredible team at 1106 Design exist. They help serious authors like you overcome these hurdles by transforming manuscripts into beautifully crafted, professionally self-published books. So from polished book covers and layouts to managing the process and providing expert guidance every step of the way, Michelle makes the publishing process seem simple, clear, and stress-free. So if you're ready to finally get your book out into the world looking every bit as professional as your writing deserves, visit onlinebusinessliftoff.com/self-publish. Once again, that's onlinebusinessliftoff.com/self-publish, all one word, and tell Michelle I sent you. A big thanks to Michelle DiFilippo at 1106 Design for sponsoring today's episode. Okay, now let's get right back into our conversation.
We tend to cope, right? So we are very strong people. All of us are very strong.
Hey, before we jump back into today's episode, I want to quickly talk to those of you who've poured your heart and soul into writing a book or a manuscript, but you haven't quite taken that next step. Maybe you've hesitated because self-publishing seems overwhelming, or you're worried it won't look professional enough. That's exactly why Michelle and her incredible team at 1106 Design exist. They help serious authors like you overcome these hurdles by transforming manuscripts into beautifully crafted, professionally self-published books. So from polished book covers and layouts to managing the process and providing expert guidance every step of the way, Michelle makes the publishing process seem simple, clear, and stress-free. So if you're ready to finally get your book out into the world looking every bit as professional as your writing deserves, visit onlinebusinessliftoff.com/self-publish. Once again, that's onlinebusinessliftoff.com/self-publish, all one word, and tell Michelle I sent you. A big thanks to Michelle DiFilippo at 1106 Design for sponsoring today's episode. Okay, now let's get right back into our conversation.
Strong. This is the state that's very hard to experience for a long time because it's so draining. So each of us will come up with either coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms. We will be looking for ways to get out of the situation. So, and normally, again, what happens easiest, no matter how hard it looks, the easiest way to do this is really change one circumstance, right? So, like in my experience, like for sure, psychology is a problem, right? So I spent all those years to study psychology. I followed my passion. And then I thought, I made a mistake. So I changed that, right? It was hard, it was difficult, but on the hindsight, it was probably the easiest thing to do. A little bit harder is really to master your own practices and tools and take responsibility for your own states. Self-leadership, right? So the reason why I'm talking about burnout leadership strategies, because leadership really starts with self-leadership and really understanding, getting awareness. Why am I reacting this way? Why am I in this state? In this sense, there is a lot of awareness about burnout. But a lot of us, it almost doesn't matter how you label this. And a lot of people, many more people are in this state, what's called languishing, right? So you're not extremely unhappy, but you're not really happy. You're in between. And to me, it's really the harder because you're not in enough pain to make any changes. You're just languishing, right? So you're just accepting this as a status quo. You just accept this as a normalcy. So I just go through my day. I'm in the rut, right? So I'm just going through the circles, picking up, dripping off, picking up, dripping off, checking the boxes, but I'm not really flourishing. So we lowered the bar in a sense, right? So we're not even striving for that sense of flourishing and vitality and vibrancy and happiness. And we're just settling for somewhere in between. Yeah, we can talk about burnout, how to prevent this, and how to, if you're in that situation, how to get out of it. It's very painful. So people are actually looking for a solution. For a lot of us, we're just neither here nor there, and we're not even looking for solutions anywhere.
It's interesting because I was speaking to somebody else just really recently and talking about the difference between success and fulfillment. And from what you've just said, it sounds like for the group of people, and maybe I'm there, maybe you're there, maybe people are there and they don't realize it, but for whoever's in that kind of languishing situation or context, what does it take to break, if the pain's not there, if the pain of burnout's not there, but you're still, maybe you're just not fulfilled, you're not happy. What does it take to break out of that situation? And as you say, with some self-leadership, move yourself to a place where you are flourishing.
Awareness is one of those that all of a sudden, and a lot of high achievers, people who were told that once you check all the boxes, you become happy. So that's the greatest myth, right? So we're chasing the success because we're just assuming that once the success comes, that happiness comes by default. So we're chasing that. So awareness that, yes, I have a success, but I'm not happy, right? That's one of those. And the second one is, I think, almost like education. Yeah, it's almost education, because more and more we learn about what being happy is and how to become happy. What we learn now is that, so that moment when you achieve something and you feel happy, that's a fleeting moment. So the next step, we immediately come out of balance and want to pursue the next goal, whatever that goal is, right? So the happiness is really in the process, the learning to enjoy the process of the journey and not just chase the destination, because that destinations will not actually bring that sustainable level of happiness. Yeah, being aware of that, being aware of your state, and raising that bar for yourself, it's one side of it. And the second side of it is really understanding that enjoying the journey is what life is.
It's an interesting thing to say, and I have to confess for myself that it's taken me a number of years to get to the place where, instead of living for that destination, focusing on that destination, dreaming about that destination, which of course is part of that whole, if you dream it, you can make it happen thing, to moving to the whole, let's get to the place where you're just enjoying the steps along the way, so that every minute, maybe not every minute of every day, but for the majority of the time that you're spending, you're actually quite enjoying what you're doing. I'm just,
Mhm.
and I know
Mhm.
I can say for myself that I didn't have a framework to use to help me move from one state to the other state. Do you have a framework that you use when you work with people to help them move from destination focused to journey focused?
Yes. So, again, speaking of a burnout, I usually talk about two levels. The first level is really stress management. You don't need to be in a burnout. You just need to be a modern person in the modern world to understand that we're always the subjects of stress. Right? It's everything. There's so many disruptions. Everything, technological disruptions, climate disruptions, I don't know, traffic disruptions, political disruptions, everything. Uncertainty is the only certain thing, right? So for us to deal with stress is really manage those stress management techniques, just being able to talk to different parts of our nervous system, a switch between fight or flight mode into a rest and digest mode, basically learning a new language. So that's one, just stress management tool. But one was her talking about those sustainable changes and how basically just learning how to enjoy your life. And then there are a few tools and the practices that I start talking about. So one of those practices, and it's ironic that I'm seriously talking about this because I'm seriously talking about inserting joy, intentionally bringing joy into your life. This is a mandate, right? So this is a requirement because we forget in that rut, just chasing success, chasing that next step and next achievement and filling all those boxes and going through all the steps and serving everyone else around us and responding to everyone else's requests. We actually put the priority of joy in our own pleasure to a sense really somewhere on the back burner, really down the priority list. So one of the practices is bring it up. This is to honor yourself, your desires, who you really are. And I tell this story because it was such a powerful story for me. I was asked to do this exercise to put together a list of 20 things that I like to do. Not because somebody asked me, not because they're useful or healthy, not because they would bring return on investment. No, the only reason for those things to be on that list to exist is because they bring me joy. They make me happy. And at the head she where I am, I said, of course, I'll do it right now. And I stopped at number three. So all I could do at one take is put three things. And they were really artificial, very shallow things as well. And I stopped and I said, what is it that I like to do? I forgot. So you put yourself in this. And it's not my choice of career, really. It's not my choice of a partner. It's not my choice of a place to live. It's not how expensive it is to live there. It's not. It's really about me, about what I like, what I want, that I shut down that part of me. I forgot about this. So that's why intentionally putting this back into your life, intentionally, it brings a lot of power because you're actually learning again about yourself. You're giving yourself permission to be yourself. And you literally start carving out the time on your calendar to do more and more of that. And that's how you replenish your energy. It's not just outgoing, serving everyone and everything around you. You're actually serving you. You replenish your energy. These things that you do for the joy of it, it gives you this boost of energy. Oh, there is happiness out there. So you were talking how to move from languishing to flourishing. That's part of this. What is it to experience flourishing? A lot of us maybe forget about that. So that's one practice. The second practice is very powerful as well, is learning and practicing and teaching yourself again to pay attention to things that you like versus things that you don't like. And you hear this a lot as a practice of gratitude. But when I say a practice of gratitude, then it's like, oh, this is the woo stuff. No, it's not. This is really these things that improve the quality of your life. And you're entirely in control of that. Nobody else is. This is the beauty of this practice, that you are entirely in control. You notice things that you like instead of things you don't like. And there's always something to like. In a corporate environment, for example, an entrepreneurial environment as well, like two entrepreneurs, two founders meet, what are you going to talk about? Yes, they'll talk about their business first, and then they start complaining. I'm so busy. There's so many things that are happening. This is so overwhelming. It is it's not an easy journey. The entrepreneurial journey is not an easy journey. There's a lot of things to be complaining about, but there's a lot of things to really celebrate. And finding these ways to celebrate and be grateful for them, for the opportunity to do that, it really lifts your spirit and it gives you that, that energy, and it refocuses your attention. So you're actually looking at the world and your business and the people in that business through different lenses. So what you're going to see your reflection back. There will be so much gratitude. People are going to be grateful back. You're going to appreciate your employees. And once you have that culture of appreciation, you're going to have a very loyal employees as well. And you're going to have people who really want to give back the best of them to you and to your business. And the same with our relationships and family. So that's the second one. The third one that's very important is really about that control and fear, right? Relinquishing unnecessary control, really understanding that it is coming from fear and how much of those fears are justified, how much of those fears are not justified. The preview, just to save you time, 99.9% of the fears are really not justified. They're not going to happen. This is really us to go in, you're just scaring ourselves. This is our fight or flight mode, our survival system that keeps us on our toes. So learning that, how to deal with that, and your sense of boundaries is really coming from that as well. How you set those boundaries once you realize how much of that is really driven by fear. So think like that. This is really your self leadership, right? So this is how you lead your life. This is how you lead, how you present yourself to yourself and to people around you, to your community, to your business, and so on and so forth. Great leadership really starts with self-leadership.
That's really interesting to me because we started out talking about the need to take responsibility for finding joy again in our own lives. And then we're finishing with saying, but you've got to give up control, stop trying to control everything. I find that an interesting juxtaposition in terms of where's the balance and how do you do that? And let me just explain a little bit why I find that fascinating, because I work with a lot of mostly women who are carers or care in the formal sense of the word. They have somebody in their family who's either really sick or really disabled, and their lives basically become consumed by the role that they has to play, and they want to play, but they basically, it takes over their lives, and they don't have room or they don't have time in their lives to do massive, big actions to say, hey, I'm taking back my life or whatever. So in terms of the factors that people can control, I like the fact that a lot of what you're talking about is something you can do while you're doing something else and you're thinking and you're doing the thinking. What do you do when you get to the point where it's time to take action and you're still in this context where you don't have a choice about it? If you actually stop doing kind of some of what you're doing, this other person's going to suffer because of it. How do you manage that?
It's absolutely, you have to understand, right? So what you can let go, what you cannot let go. So when I'm talking about the control, I'm really talking about relinquishing unnecessary control. So things like, and there could be very little things. You brought up the situations in families, for example, right? So let's say in the work situation, so there are tons of different ways to perform a task, right? And you as a manager, as a leader, as a founder of this company, you need to have that help, right? So a lot of people let's start with this. So you want to do everything yourself because nobody else can do it better, right? So that's the most typical situation for founders and entrepreneurs. Nobody can do better than me, right? So nobody can get the same results. And it might be true, you cannot do all, right? So what is it that only you can do? Where is it that you bring that value, right? So once you start measuring your contribution in that way, like where is the greatest value that I can bring to only I can do? and everything else you start to let go, right? So you get it to a virtual assistant, for example. Yes, it's not going to be the same spreadsheet. It might not have 5 columns. It will have 4 columns, maybe not even columns, but rows. But the result will be the same. The calculation will be the same. And guess what? You're not going to spend a second of your time on this, a second of your energy on that. So shedding that and understanding that the reason you wanted to control this was because of that fear that the result will not be the same. So you wanted to control the process so that it will get to the better result, but realizing that you don't have to control the process and maybe someone can actually come up with a better process. So these are small things that we're talking about. Like in families, for example, I was the same way. I know a lot of the dishes need to be put in the dishwasher in this way, and nobody else can do it differently. Really, the question to ask in these circumstances, 6 months from now, 1 year from now, is it going to matter? And then the answer is no. Don't spend your energy on that. It is a skill. It is a skill to let go of that unnecessary control. And then to your situation, right? So if there's something that you have to do, that's the question to ask. Am I the only one who can do this? Is this important? Is this life-threatening? Is it important? Am I the only one who can do that? Let me give you another situation with the families when a lot of women are juggling family and work, right? So you go to work and you're constantly guilty that you're not with your kids. And you're with your kids and you're constantly guilty that you're not doing your work and you're not taking care of your business. So this is an impossible situation. That's when you have to start to deconstruct. What is it that's important when I'm with my kids? What is the most important? It's not when I'm making breakfast for them. It's not when I'm cleaning their room and so on and so forth. Maybe it is for you. Maybe it really brings you joy to clean the kids' rooms. Most of the time, the answer would be it's really a quality time that only I can give them. Read the book, be there when they're put to bed, right? So read the book for them. Have one activity a week that's really quality activity, so on and so forth, and everything else, you let go. So this is the thing that I'm talking about, and it's really intentional, right? So you look at your values, at what you can bring and what you want to get out of this, what brings you the most satisfaction. And you see what I can actually let go and how I can perform all those other activities with help from others. Does that answer your question, Trudy?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And it brings me to a very brief question that I think follows on nicely from that. And that is when you're thinking about a situation like this where you're torn between your 2 sets of roles and responsibilities, what's the best way, or is there a best way? What are some things that you can do in terms of thinking about this, in terms of separating out in your own mind the time versus energy? Because you can spend time doing things that actually drain you, and you can spend time doing things that bring you joy. How do you kind of shape your world so that you can actually do the things that give you energy and not drain you?
Yeah, it's interesting because at some point I realized that time is really elastic, right? So you would think that there's 24 hours a day and this is it. But it's really elastic. It is what you make out of it. And I know I keep pounding on the same thing, like you are in power, you're in charge, you take responsibility. But that's what it is. That's really the only way to take a power back, is just say, I am responsible. So how do you construct that time? I think value is very important as well, just measuring that in terms of value. So another example from a corporate world that I can give you. So I had a lot of those as well, like 6 a.m. meetings, 5 a.m. meetings, and you show up just to show up, right? And you sit there as part of that, I don't know, 30 people have you just to see your name on the list of participants in the Zoom, because you're anxious to let it go. There's no value for you to be there only to have your name written on the side. I'm at Zoom meeting. So looking at the value that you contribute, right? On one side, the value that you can contribute that nobody else can. And on that side, what you enjoy in that. So I think that's where you will find the secret sauce, right? So in your running your business or being in your corporate role, right? Really look at that value and measure in terms of value. And what you'll see is that, yes, sometimes those things that the value that you contribute, that you're the best of, sometimes you don't enjoy them that much. But there are some things that you contribute value and you enjoy them, right? So the secret here is to, first of all, understand this thing and then start shifting, right? So some of the things that you know you're really good at, but you don't want to do them anymore. So you gradually shed them out of your schedule. And then going back to intentionally schedule things on your calendar that bring you joy, that don't really have, oh, this is the greatest value I contribute, and this is the greatest joy I get from that. There's the joy of it. That's probably you're going to shed a little bit, you're going to cut a little bit of time from your Netflix binging, things like that. We all have these empty pockets in our time that just goes by. I'm not saying now schedule each and every minute of your day. For some people it works. For people like me, it doesn't. It really needs to be fluid and flexible and so on and so forth. Again, learning yourself and understanding that those breaks, this is the value I contribute. This is how I like it or I don't like it. This is the value I want to contribute, right? So that will be your area of growth, right? And you intentionally build this big, and you enjoy the process.
No, I like it. I like it. I think it makes so much sense to me. And as you were speaking, I was mentally imagining somebody walking on a tightrope across Niagara Falls or something, and you're balancing, and you've got to keep that balance between both of those things. Victoria, that's been really interesting, and I know that listeners will find it really helpful. If they would like to reach out to you, or maybe they'd like to have your help, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so the best place is my LinkedIn, just to reach out and connect with me personally. I'm on there a lot every day, and there are ways to really reach out. Victoria Mensch, just look me up. If you are interested in more of a kind of corporate programs, you can still reach me out on LinkedIn, but there is a Silicon Valley Executive Academy. You can look up what we do there and how we help on the company and the corporate level to bring more of that harmony into our lives, into our work lives, and into our personal lives so that we are happier and more productive.
No, that's fantastic. And I'll put those in the show notes. I am going to get you to just repeat the name of your website just because you broke up just a little bit there.
Oh, okay. sbexecutive.academy. That stands for Silicon Valley Executive Academy.
Okay. No, thank you for that. I will put that in the show notes. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Trudy. It was really a joy to be here.
If this conversation with Victoria has you rethinking how you manage your energy, your time, and even your joy, you're not alone. Her insights are a wake-up call for anyone who's been pushing too hard for too long. So if you found today's episode helpful, do me a quick favor, subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, and leave a review while you're at it. Your feedback helps more people discover these conversations and start their own journey to a healthier, happier business life. So until next time, keep taking those steps, big or small, toward building the business and the life that you want.